Hi, this is Rick Clovis with Oklahoma State University Extension, and this is another in our series of giant pumpkin growing videos. So I thought I'd kind of do more of an educational video today just on plant classification. Some of this will apply directly to giant pumpkins, but I just wanted to talk about the way we classify plants based on their physical characteristics. So I'm going to talk today mainly about angiosperms, which are flowering plants, which include grasses, our vegetables, deciduous plants like trees, as well as our like pumpkins and watermelons, those kinds of things, our flowers in our garden, irises, tulips. Those are all considered angiosperms or flowering plants, or other classifications that include like a moss or a fern or a pine, but those are considered more primitive plants. So today we're just going to talk about angiosperms or flowering plants, and then the two classifications within that are monocots and dicots. And we're going to talk about the physical characteristics of a plant that make them either a monocot or dicot. Monocots are about 23% of angiosperms. Dicots are about 75% of angiosperm. There's a couple others like lilies and magnolia classification, but that's just like 2% of the angiosperm. So we're mainly just going to talk today about monocots and dicots. One of the basic things you can identify a monocot or a dicot is the flower. So this is a pansy, which is a dicot. Dicots have 4 or 5 petals, or a number divisible by 4 or 5. So you see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. So this is a dicot based on that it has 5 petals. A monocot, which would be something like a tulip or an iris, a crocus, a daffodil, anything that grows from a bulb is a monocot. They have 3 petals or a number divisible by 3. So monocots 3 or a number divisible by 3 petals. Dicot, a number divisible by 4 or 5. So those the first classification. The second one we're going to talk about is the root system. Here we have some grass, which is a monocot. So you can see it has a very fibrous root system. It's all, you can just tell that very fibrous, growing out in all directions. And that would be a monocot, a root system common to a monocot, especially grasses. And then for a dicot, they're going to have like a taproot. You can see how this is just one. It's very different, even though this is a younger plant, obviously, than the grass plant. But you can see that it has this taproot, and that's going to be common. That's what our giant pumpkins are going to have. And so that's another way to classify plants. Also, we classify plants by what kind of the veins in the leaf. Here we have a cucumber plant, and you can see how these are all very radiate out from the one spot. The veins within the leaves, kind of like a common tree or an oak tree would look as well. They would all be dicots, versus on a monocot leaf, the veinous system is kind of tough to see here, but the veins would all be parallel up and down this leaf. Like if you think of a big iris leaf or something like that, that's what would be typical of the veining system within a monocot. So the next thing we're going to talk about would be the differentiation would be with the vascular system within the stem. You can see that like this dicot, this cucumber has the stem right here, but the vascular system, the way it transports water and nutrients up and down the stem from the root to the leaves, would be through the vascular system, and that vascular system is going to be all around the edges of this stem, and the middle would be fairly hollow, versus on these young grassling seedlings right here, the vascular system would be parallel, and the vascular tubes within the leaf would all be equally distributed within the leaf. And then another way to distinguish between monocots and dicots is kind of where they get their name. Mono is 1, di is 2. So the monocots have 1 cotyledon, dicots have 2 cotyledon. And the cotyledon is just the part, like here we have this pumpkin seed that's within the plant where the plant comes out of, and there's just 1 on a monocot. There are 2 on a dicot. Like you can see on this cilantro right here, this is a very young seedling right here. So it has 2 leaves that came from those cotyledons. So that's a dicot right there. You can see those. Versus on these grass seedlings, which are monocots, they just, each one of these these blades of grass is coming from a different seed. These are all different plants within there. So they're called monocots based on one cotyledon or two cotyledon. So also I want to talk about, so that's the basic differences between a monocot and a dicot. But so now some of the ways we manage our giant pumpkin based on this, and I'm going to use this cucumber plant to kind of show some of those things as well. But you can see on this cucumber right here, we have these two leaves right here are the first cotyledon leaves, or embryonic leaves, or seedling leaves. That all means the same thing. They're the first two leaves that come out, just like I pointed out back here on this cilantro. These are the same thing I was just pointing out on the cucumber. So those are the first two to come out, and then the third leaf to come out is called the first true leaf, which you can see right is this leaf right here, which comes out from in between the cotyledon leaves. And then the second true leaf is actually this leaf way out here. It's just grown so much. So this, and so that's, we want, this is going to be the main part of our giant pumpkin we're going to take care of. This is going to be our main vine that's following along with this second true leaf, because our terminal bud is also out here growing from here out on our giant pumpkin. So we want to take care of that. You can see this is the primary vine. And then these are the secondary stems coming off right here, and they're going to all grow out to the sides. That's how we get our Christmas shape pattern of our mature plant. But this is a tertiary stem right here. This one right here that's coming off a secondary, and those are the ones we actually want to pinch off as our plant's growing, because they don't really provide enough nutrients and they just draw from making our pumpkin big. So our two cotyledon leaves, our first true leaf, our second true leaf out here, and then these two leaves would be secondary leaves. So that's how we're going to decide. And as your pumpkin grows, you want to train it to grow in which direction you want, because it can stretch out 30 feet if it's doing really well. So cotyledon leaves or seedling embryonic leaves, first true leaf, secondary leaf, or second true leaf, excuse me, and then these are the secondary leaves growing off of the secondary stems. And one other point I wanted to make was on some of you had trouble getting your giant pumpkin to sprout, and you planted from seed and it didn't come up very well. So this is a giant pumpkin, you can see, seedling that didn't do too well, and I dug it up to kind of see what the problem was. And so here you can see it's a dicot, right? But it's only got one cotyledon leaf. That's because this other leaf right here was ripped off as it tried to sprout up out of the ground. And I pried the seed covering apart. It was stuck in there, and as it grew, it actually just ripped that cotyledon leaf off. So that's why we advise you, when you're getting these ready to plant, that you file those edges like I showed you in the video, soak it in hydrogen peroxide for 30 minutes, and then soak it in water for another 6 hours before you plant it, because these giant pumpkins kind of have giant seeds as well. The coating is a little thicker than they would have normally if they hadn't been bred just for being giant pumpkins, so they have a hard time germinating and popping that seed shell out wide enough to actually grow out of it. Some of our other seedlings actually came up out of the ground, and this seed coating was still clamped onto a leaf, and that kind of inhibited its growth as well. So for next year, if you get ready to do this, be sure and do that. So for kind of a project, if you need something to do this summer, why don't you go out in your garden and take some pictures of plants you have in your garden, in your lawn, or just out in your pasture, or whatever, and tell us what they are. Tell us and show us the characteristics that make them a monocot or a dicot. Thank you.